My name is Second Wind 814, and welcome to my review of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Yes, that's the film adaptation of the classic series of children's uh, books that have, as the trailer said, of terror by generations. Now, I actually have history with these books. I have read a few of the stories. It has been years, but I did read a few of the stories when I was younger, and a couple of them did traumatize me. But probably not the ones you probably thought. But anyways, so yeah. Ah, did I like this movie? Yes. Now, personally, did I think this movie was scary? Mm, I would say probably not, but I did find it very entertaining. Obviously, I think this movie was targeted a little more towards the younger folk, not older people like me, but I still find it entertaining. So, basically, is a story. So basically, the story of this movie is that there's a bunch of teens who basically you're looking for a thrill on Halloween, go find a haunted house, and unknowingly unleash something for something, and then they all start dying, and one by one. Well, most of them anyway. But yeah, so that's basically the the plot. Hot. Not good. Excuse me. So, oh yeah. Now I will say that some of the that even the that if you're somebody if you're a longtime fan of the books, and you're expecting them to take the stories that you've seen and basically adhere, you keep their and basically, yeah, I guess you could say he, well, I guess adhere to the stories. This line is 100%. I think you might be disappointed. They do try to be as faithful they can, but with the whole in the theme of the plot of the movie, they do have to take liberties with the stories. Stories. So, oh yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I thought. But other than so, if you're thinking of like with Harold, if you're expecting to see a scarecrow, basically he stretch a skin out on a roof. Sorry, that doesn't happen. I mean, Harold is involved in the story, and he in a pretty, and I have to admit the way he get his the part with Harold is actually pretty good. Good, but I mean they're all pretty good, but other than that, but yeah, they're all pretty good. But yeah, so no scarecrow was lying out of skin to dry in the sun on a roof. Sorry, but yeah. But yeah, but with all the other stories, I think they did. They tried to be as faithful as possible. Some made him. I mean, sometimes I guess you could say some of them are a bit. It's well, I mean, in the story, I get to help to the story, but the stories, for the most part, are in the plot of the movie. They do try to adhere as close as possible, or most of them, but they do, like I said, they do take the liberties, like there it is, but they stay it as close to the source material as possible, which I think is good. So, for example, in the big toe Oh, the one thing we never see, and we don't see a lot uh, except is the corpse, or I guess you'd say the monster that comes with the toe. Although I will say I think the way they did it is good because it's basically obviously like they have to fit it into the movie. They have to fit it in the movie, so it's obviously they're not gonna literally have have a guy go out to his garden and rip a toe off, so rip a freaking toe off of a corpse, and then later have the corpse come for him. No, obviously that doesn't happen. But uh, yeah, so in the toe one, the toe basically kind of appears in some guy's hoop, hoop, and then we don't see much of the corpse, only kind of when it's coming up the stairs, and it just drags the kid away, it hit away out of his bed, like you see in the trailers. I think there's now that one. Interestingly, he in the movie in the story. I know it's been years, but I do not recall them ever all them ever giving an accurate description. So, description of the of the monster, whatever it was that came for the toe in the story. So, or obviously, he's showing the monster here, however briefly, is obviously a liberty they had to take. But yeah, yeah. But so yeah, this movie I think stayed very faithful. Oh, and I well also bring their original story, and he actually did like how they wrote how, how they incorporated, I guess you could say, the written stories into the plot. Basically, the plot is that there's Sarah Bellows stories. It is, and whenever she writes one about you, whatever whatever creature or ghost or whatever in that story, basically, or whatever happens in the written story, it happens to you in real life. But yeah, this one I thought was done very well, because it doesn't feel because it doesn't feel like a bunch of cheap effects. You can tell all of here is physical. So yeah, and I'll get to Sarah Beth how she ties into the story a little later on. But yeah, so also I thought that the whole how everybody all the actors did a great job. You actually they actually see you actually they act like how well, a lot of people probably would act when in crazy shit like this is going on down around them. How um, they like, hey, what the hell is going on here? Also, and I mean, granted, this you have to one thing you must remember is that this movie does in fact take place is in the 1960s, late 1960s, I should as well. Okay, well, 1968 to be exact. But yeah, I thought that was definitely an accurate time period to place the movie in, and the whole 60s vibe of the town. And I actually think it goes very well with a lot of the stories they used, or with all the stories they used, like having, it's like they had the bully, the bully jocks who basic ox, I mean, yeah. And I do think that if they had used a more modern setting, I think this movie just would not have worked. But yeah, this setting definitely. But yeah, the setting of this movie with it taking place in the 1960s was definitely a good idea because I mean it's been a while since I've read a lot of the books, and I haven't read all stories, but reading from the stories I do have read, and I do think, and I mean, granted, the books were written in the 1980, were written and published in the 1980s to the 1990s, but still, I honestly thought this was a very, very good time setting. But enough about that. But yeah, so moving on. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought. I guess now I mention all the characters. Like I said, they act like they act like I guess this normal teens or teens would at least I guess teens in 1960s would act, even though a lot of them act how basically they act like how a lot of teens would act when acts like basically they have no idea what's going on. And but I do have to say, hey, I like how instead of here how they just kind of how it portrays them trying to deal basically he just trying to deal with how should I say this? I guess you could say a I don't know. Yeah, I know. Trying to basically going through their daily hives, and is while trying to is showing how this can and what was I saying? How this affects them. Here it jumps right into the stories. We don't see any. I mean, we do see some of their lives, but it's not. I mean, it shows a lot of the stories, and stories also. It also shows, but what it also shows was, and I like how these teams. It shows these teams trying to find a way to stop it, and actually doing research. And that I thought was actually pretty good. Instead of having the characters. Well, I mean, a lot of they try to figure out how to stop it, but I guess it's the time period that the film is set in and lends itself well. Where they're going to the library and research and doing research, rather than rather than and and having it set in the modern era and having them do stuff like look up how to stop a vengeful spear on the internet. So yeah, Sarah. So yeah. I mentioned Sarah Bellows a little earlier, and and the part she plays is in the overall plot of this movie. I thought was very well worked in. Basically, the plot is that Sarah was locked away in a dark room by her family for years, and basically he ended up dying, and now her spirit here is basically he consumed with rage, and she uses her book and her stories to basically kill people. So yeah, that was interesting. And of course, we do learn eventually Sarah was locked away by her family, not because she was mentally ill, but because she was trying to she was exposing secrets about the family's paper mill, how it was dangerous, and the family didn't want they didn't like that because they were all about because they were more concerned with money, and so that he just locked her away and called her crazy, which I thought was actually pretty good. actually a very good way, and that's how she and it's that in her basement cell that she he wrote all the stories, which I actually thought was pretty good. Good, how the stories are basically the work of a victim, angry because basically that's what she has basically. Now she's so filled with rage. Now, well, she's so filled with rage that that now she's using her stories to take it out on other people. And I thought that was a very interesting wraparound for how they were going to use the book, book and the scary stories. So yeah, uh, and that's basically how the stories life. And I have to admit, I do like the fact how stories literally write themselves. Well, technically it is Sarah Bellows writing them, but it is fun how fun. But I do think it's fun. It's interesting how it's like the stories write themselves. And I know that sounds like a bit of a trope, but here I think it's very appropriate because that's basically how the stories come in, like the Herald or the Red Spot or the Big Toe and the Dream. And now I want to stress that I thought that that's my point earlier, how I thought they were very faithful to the source material. Well, material. Well, as faithful as they could be taking liberties, but like for example, Harold. Harold. Harold, the Scarecrow story, he was actually the first one. But Harold is the killer Scarecrow. Oh, I have to admit. Oh, and yes, he is abused by who's by a very by an annoying teen, one of the annoying teens who's basically, I guess you could say, the school bully. And let me tell you, this bully is a real asshole. I admit I was kind of cheering for Harold up there. That I thought was cool. Well, how Harold what is basically how the scene with Harold, how he keeps appearing, and then eventually when they make him move, they keep it just a, I guess you could say a creepy EP all the way. They don't ever have Harold but all of a sudden just take off running. That was interesting, and I thought that the way how like he stabs the kid with the pitchfork. Yes, as Harold stabs the kid with a pitchfork here, and then the kid ends up turning into a scarecrow. And I guess you could call that he replaced the scarecrow. Oh, but so. Or one thing I do, one thing I one of the stories that we saw in the Super Bowl spots there, the Dream. I honestly thought the way they did that creature was actually very good, very faithful to the source material, and I actually, the creature design was actually pretty creepy. I think actually creepier than Harold. Well, she was probably the creepy. Well, okay, probably next to the Jangly Man, which the Jangly Man I found interesting, and was basically a form from the story Me Tai Doty Walker, which I have to admit the way he had he introduced the Jangly Man in the movie. I personally thought that that would have been a little bit better to have from the story. What do you come for? But the Hutch as Mitai Doty Walker is basically just a head, but still, I thought uh, it was great. Now, I will say, the Jangly Man basically having an original creation and for the movie, I thought his creature design was done very, very well. He was probably one of the spooky creatures in the movie. So yeah. Also, I thought, fun fact, I actually read that the Jangling Man is played by an actual contortionist. So props to that guy, hey, because ooh, just watching the Jangling Man twist around like he does, I have to admit that is freaky. So, oh yeah, uh, uh, hmm. So, oh yeah, working around. So yeah, like I said, very faithful to the source material, with I guess the exception of me, Tiger Walker, but I'm willing to forgive if if it. So yeah, I also have to say one thing I liked about this movie, like I said earlier, here you don't see it like them going through normal lives in this. Well, you do, but one of the things I love, like I said earlier, is it just jumps through the story through story. We see them a little bit in their everyday life, but mainly when we see them in that, it's the teens doing things like studying, how do you study, like trying to figure out, or I shouldn't say stuff, but doing research for how to do research on how to stop cerebellos, those this research, or there's there's research kind of research records at the hospital. All that I thought, okay, well, that's not very normal, but still, I liked that because it doesn't. I thought that made the movie very enjoyable. And I have to say, this movie, one of the things that I like about this, or liked about this movie, is how this is one of those movies that never feels like it's dragging. It goes, but it feels like it uses every bit of its time wisely. And that's one thing I always can appreciate in a horror, especially in a horror movie. It's just it's when and it feels like there's no wasted time. Time. And everything can just feel. There's no dragging. There's no padding done. Everything. Done. There's nothing like that. Every scene has a purpose. Purpose. Now, purpose. That's what I like. Now, I will say, I guess and here comes a big spoiler. Spoiler. Even though they stayed faithful, well, for those of you who were wondering about the red spot, big spoiler coming up here. For those of you who kind of want to see a girl have her face explode with spiders, and every haters, and then I guess basically get killed by the spiders, you might be a little disappointed because yeah, she does survive the incident, but still, she's Hill. Well, she does survive the incident, albeit probably very traumatized, but yeah, that does not mean it's any less. Yes, I guess they creepy. And if you do have a fear of spiders, then brace yourself for that scene, because man, oh man, and and that scene is most likely going to terrify you. Although I will say, that the image of the spiders first crawling out of her cheek, that I will say is there. very disturbing. Disturbing. The idea of an insect just crawling out of any human body. Ugh. That just really freaks me out. The close up of her cheek and the spiders initially be crawling out. That I have to say, it was actually well shot. That was disturbing. Right, right. So moving right along, moving on, I have to say, eh, mm, one of the other things I liked about this movie is doesn't feel like I say any wasted characters. There's no none of the char well, none of the characters feel like they're there to, well, I mean, they're secondary characters, but even like the secondary character, Stella's dad, even he felt was important in some way. And none of them just be here. This is and I think I think that's one of the nice things about this movie is that there's not an abundance of the main character, like the side characters you see that, they're not. Mm, the side character there's a there's are just kind of they're in the background, but they don't really have any interaction with their main characters unless they're supposed to. And that I thought was good, because that does help to move the story along. So yeah. Uh, Also, mm, so yeah. Scary. That's scary stories to tell in the dark. 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 About the book. I have to say, I did like the ending about how ending where it's how like Stella how basically confronts the ghost of Sarah Bello and ends up and basically brings the end to it by basically promising to write Sarah's story, which she does. Now, I will say that this movie does sort of set up for sequel baiting, I guess you could say, somewhat, because basically in the end it shows Stella, her dad, and Ruth, the Spider Girl, Earl, well, they're driving along, and we hear her during the voiceover. They're telling her, they're saying how she is going to try to get her friends back. So it does sort of set up for a sequel. Now, how they would do that, I don't know. There are because this story does this movie uses stories from all three books. There's Big Toe, Harold, the Red Spot, Meatai, Doty Walker, the Dream, and the Haunted House. Of which I think Harold, I believe, is Scary Stories 3. Harold and the Red Spot are from Scary Stories 3. Meatai, Doty Walker, and the Big Toe, I know, were from the first one. I believe, the Haunted House is definitely the first one, and I do believe that the Dream is in the first one, and as well. Oh, now, so yeah. Now there are a lot of other stories there. Yeah. So how they would work them in, I don't know, but there are 2 more books in the series: more scary stories to tell in the dark, and Scary Stories 3, more tales to chill your bones. So if they do decide to do sequels, I don't know what stories they would use and how they would work them in. But hey, I mean, if anything, I think, hell, maybe they could try to make a horror anthology and have it be somewhat something of a different, maybe put it in a different time period in a different town, and and a new backstory. I don't know. Oh, they could do it like that, or maybe that, or do it like, I don't know, or maybe you join like Stella and she's older, and then maybe she finds a different book or something like that. That I don't know. Oh, maybe no, who knows? But yeah. But honestly, I don't know if this movie really needs a sequel. That's the thing. It feels a lot like a complete story to me. He, obviously he, excuse me. It feels like a complete story to me. He, so who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I did like. Yeah, overall, I like this movie. Once again, I didn't really find it scary. There were some parts that were kind of freaky, like the one with the dream and the close up of the spiders initially coming out of the girl's face. That was kind of freaky. Oh, and the kid eating the toad. Whatever. That was freaky as all hell. Well, it wasn't freaky. It was kind of just kind of gross. But yeah. Other than that, that well, I shouldn't say other than that, but yeah. Ah, now I did like this movie. Now, well, I will. Now, before I go, I do want to say that one of my points earlier, that if you're expecting them to adhere exactly to the source material, like Harold stretching the skin out on a roof, or maybe the dream having somebody being in a room, or like what is just there, like the big toe. Well, a big toe is all right, but other than that, if you're expecting it to be, it sort of be a literal or word for word or just frame right or and then frame to frame adaptation, you're going to be disappointed. And some of them, like I said, they got a lot of the creatures right. Right, and some people may argue that some of the stories that they used may be stories in name only, but I still think they were faithful. So, well, you might be disappointed. If if so, you might be disappointed with the. Excuse me. So yeah, you may be disappointed. Pointed. Uh, so yeah, you might be disappointed with that if you're expecting sort of sort of a pure or adaptation. And that's not what I think you should go to. Obviously, they're going to have to take liberties here. Yeah, but you need to go into it with the thinking that this is I guess you could say, a big screen adaptation and taken it directly from not taken directly, but based on it. That, I mean, remember, don't expect pure or line for line adaptations on the screen. That if you do, you might if you go into it with that kind of mindset, you're probably not going to like the movie. But other than that, but if you are able to go into it with an open mind and be as just as a fan of the books, and expecting the hooks and be willing to accept the liberties they take when necessary, I think you will like this movie. So yeah, and so it's time for the final rating. My final rating for this movie, for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, is an 8 out of 10. I thought everything was done well. The cast, Yes, the acting, the story, the plot, the actual stories that they used. Everything was done well. Here, here, and even the time period. So yeah, would I recommend going to see this movie? I would say yes, yes. Now, if you have little kids, obviously kids, they might be freaked out, but hey, I think by this. But if you're someone, but I'd say this is one of those movies, and these are some of those stories that I think are still deserve to be shared throughout the generations. I mean, come on. I think these books have like the trailer said have terrified generations. So yeah, I mean, I guess this maybe if you don't want to be dealing with constant nightmares with your kids, as I could tell you, don't bring them. But if I, other than that, I'd have to say, I have to recommend this movie. Yeah, I thought personally, I didn't find the movie very scary, but it was I did find it entertaining. Oh, and one more thing I want to clear up before I go. I did mention at the beginning of this review that I have history with some stories in this book. Is in the books that did traumatize me, and I want to make that clear that the story that really got me as a kid, it was The Haunted House. Mainly because of the visual and that image of that freaking skeleton-eyed girl. That image still of the Haunted House still unnerves me to this day. I mean, it doesn't freaking outright terrify me like it did as a child, hmm, but yeah, this, ah, that, so I want to clear that up. So yeah, scary stories to tell in the dark. 8 out of 10, go see it. It, and bring the whole family along. And well, that about wraps up for this video. My name is SecondWind814. Thank you so much for watching. May the wind always be at your back. See you next time.